through last year. It's 1:30 in the afternoon, so we'll call this meeting to order of the Mendocino Council of Governments.
Right. Okay, and we'll go ahead and do roll call. Alrighty, do we have Director John Haschek? Yes.
He's muted.
You're muted, John. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Director Mike Carter.
Here.
Director Greta Connie.
Here.
Director Jeff Hansen.
Here.
Director Bernie Norvell.
Here.
Director Josephina Duenas. Okay. Tasha Austrian.
Here.
Here, okay. And Chair Dan Jurdy.
Here.
All right, thank you so much.
Great. And well, just before we move on, we wanted to just take a moment and welcome our new members. We know we have several, so we will do our best to go easy on the acronyms for our new members, because we do really love the acronyms in the transportation world. We'll also be planning just a new member orientation presentation for our next meeting. So either in March or April, we'll have a little orientation to provide some background and information on what MCOG is all about. But in the meantime, welcome, and we're glad to have you all here.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution making the findings for the remote meetings?
I will so move. Second.
Any comment? Do we have any public comment?
We do not have public comment. We did not receive any prior to the meeting on this item.
Okay, thanks. Can we have a roll call?
Director John Haschek.
Yes.
Director Mike Carter.
Yes.
Director Greta Connie.
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen.
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell.
Yes.
Director Josephine Duenas.
Yes.
Tasha Austrian.
Yes.
And Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
I've got the next one if you're ready for that. The annual election of officers, and you have my written staff report. According to MCOG's bylaws, a chair and a vice chair are elected annually by the board of directors, typically on the first Monday in February as the first meeting of the calendar year, and that's where we are now. I've attached the relevant sections of the bylaws in your packet there. Some description of the duties of those offices. And there hasn't been a formally adopted procedure for the elections, so in our bylaws. So for some time now, we've just been using Robert's Rules of Order. You're welcome to propose another method. But if it's all right, I'll go ahead and conduct the election using Robert's Rules as usual. All right, so the way I'll do this is to hear any nominations for the office of chair. We don't need a second to nominate. We can have any discussion, and then I will close the nominations for that office and then ask for a motion and a vote on any of those nominees until a motion carries, and then repeat that for the office of vice chair. So I'll go ahead and get started then. Do I hear any nominations for the office of chair of the Mendocino Council of Governments?
I'll nominate Dan Jurdy.
All right. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none. Are there any questions or discussion? I guess not. He's been the chair for some time. Hearing no other nominations, I'll close nominations and ask for a motion and a second and a roll call vote. So Director Hashtag, can I consider that a motion on your part?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will
And-
second.
Okay, second by Director Carter. And Jody, would you call the roll? All our actions by teleconference have to be by roll call vote. So if you go ahead and do that one, I appreciate it.
Director John Hashek,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josephine Duenas,
Yes.
Director Tasha Osran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director Jurdy is reelected as chair. And I will go ahead and ask for any nominations for the office of vice chair. So we're kind of looking for volunteers here. We have a vacancy and probably need a new vice chair. Our past chair is now no longer in office, so we'll need someone new.
I will nominate Supervisor Haschak.
All right. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Going once, twice, hearing no other nominations. Any discussion on that? John, are you available?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. May I have a motion? Director Carter, can I consider that a motion?
Yes, you may.
All right. And may I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay. And Jody, can you go ahead and call the roll on that vote?
Director John Hashek,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josephina Duenas,
Yes.
Tasha Osran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
well,
you very much, everyone. And congratulations.
Yeah, and thank you for another term as chair. Actually, transportation improvements were among the top issues for me when I first ran for city council in 1998. I've been an alternate on MCOG since 1999, board member since 2003, chair for, I think, since 2008 or 9. And this is one of my favorite agencies and assignments. All right, so now we're on to convening the meeting as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency. We're going to immediately recess and reconvene as the Policy Advisory Committee, where Caltrans is a voting member. And next on our agenda is the consent calendar approval of the December 5th minutes, as well as the Technical Advisory Committee recommendations from January 18th. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
I will second.
Perfect. Thank you. Roll call. John Hashek.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josephina Duenas,
Yes.
Tasha Osran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public who want to address the board on items not on today's agenda?
Not seeing any public expression. We did not receive any items prior to the meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're on to the regular calendar recognition of departing board members.
Yes, so I will go over the certificates that we have prepared in recognition of our outgoing board member service to MCOG. We did recognize one outgoing board member at our December meeting. That was Jim Brown from City of Ukiah. But we did learn after that December meeting that we had the 2 additional board members. So Tess Alban Smith for City of Fort Bragg and Scott Ignacio for City of Point Arena. So I'll go ahead and read the certificates, and if there are any additions to these, we'll be happy to add them before we present these to the former board members.
Would you like me to share that screen? And
Yes,
just
please, that would be
all
great.
right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, here's the first one, if you can see that all right.
It is loading, I believe. There we
Okay.
go. All right. So up first, we have Scott Ignacio from City of Point Arena. On behalf of MCOG, we recognize and appreciate your dedicated service during your term of office on the Board of Directors as an elected representative of the City of Point Arena as an alternate from January 2017 through December 2020, and as director from January 2021 through December 2022. Special recognition is made of your service as vice chair and on the executive committee. We appreciate your support of staff, engagement with the board, and commitment to regional transportation planning, funding, and project development throughout Mendocino County. Thank you. So that is Scott's. And then Janet, if you want to go on.
Yes. Okay, let me find that other one for you.
Okay. Well, while Janet's bringing that up, does anybody have anything they'd like to add in recognition of Scott's service to MCOG?
I'll just add, I thought he always brought thoughtful comments, and I'm sure he's doing good work outside of the city council on Point Arena.
Yes, thank you. Right, thank you. So then next we have Tess Alban Smith from the City of Fort Bragg. On behalf of MCOG, we recognize and appreciate your dedicated service during your term of office on the Board of Directors as an elected representative of the City of Fort Bragg from January 2019 through December 2022. Special recognition is made of your service on the Executive Committee for 2 years, on the Renewable Energy Network and Climate Ad Hoc Committee for 1 year, and as the CalCog delegate for 4 years. We appreciate how you have supported public transit and mobility issues and been a champion of climate action, progressive transportation, and planning efforts for the Mendocino County region. Thank you. So those are our 2 certificates that we will be presenting. We are very appreciative of both of those board members and the service that they have provided. So we're sad to see them go, but also happy to have some new faces here. So any additions to either of those?
Yeah, I appreciate everything that Tess offered, and the fact that she was willing to serve on the executive committee and some other committees. I think that extra service is needed beyond the monthly board meetings.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. All right. Well, these are not action items, so we will present these to the outgoing board members and make sure they know that their service has been appreciated. So that's it for that item, and we can go on to the unmet transit needs.
Great, thank you, Natili. So the purpose of this unmet transit needs hearing, and you have my written staff report there in your packet, is that the Transportation Development Act, that's TDA for short, which MCOG is responsible for administering, requires that before any local transportation funds, that's the sales tax revenue, are allocated for streets and roads purposes, a process is conducted to identify any unmet transit needs that may be reasonable to meet for funding. And those are terms that have formal definitions. They're in your packet. This procedure has been followed annually by MCOG. So before I get too far along, I'd like to have a finding of proper notice of this public hearing. And I can report that proper 30-day legal notice was made in the Ukiah Daily Journal as a paper of general wide circulation, and that went in on January 6th. The Independent Coast Observer in Walla also published on January 6th, and the Fort Bragg Advocate News published on January 12th. And you have those proofs of publication in your agenda packet. So only one notice of general circulation is required, and that was met by the Ukiah paper. We also posted the notice on our website and emailed to subscribers of the website. So these actions more than meet the requirement. And traditionally, we've had a motion and a vote on the finding of proper notice. That may not be strictly necessary, it's just been a customary thing. So would someone like to make a motion of finding proper notice?
So
I
moved.
so moved.
Okay,
Okay.
second.
Motion and a second, okay. And Jody, I'll need the roll call on that.
Director John Haschek,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell, sorry,
Yes.
Director Josefina Duenas,
Yes.
Tasha Ostran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, excuse me, I probably need some water, but shall we open the public hearing then, Chair Judy? I think.
Yeah, at 1:47, we'll open the public hearing.
Excellent, thank you very much. And what I'd like to do is report written testimony that we've received to date. And also we have findings from our Social Services Transportation Advisory Council, which we call the SSTAC for short. That is a standing committee of MCOG, and it's made up of primarily social service type of agencies. And also Mendocino Transit Authority has seats on that. And also, as I'll speak to in the next item, there are seats for potential transit users. So that committee, the council met on November 28th, and we had a workshop. And in your packet, you will find the list of needs that they came up with, and these are in no particular order. They have yet to be analyzed. We're submitting them as testimony. And so there you'll see there were 6 needs that came out of the workshop by the SSTAC. And they also endorsed 4 needs that came from Mendocino Transit Authority, from the public through their board meetings. A total of 10 recommended unmet transit needs. And additionally, they had a couple of other recommendations, which are not meeting the same definition as unmet needs, but they do also recommend development of a Ukiah Transit Center, which is in planning stages now. And they also recommended work on developing a new administrative building for Mendocino Transit Authority. So, but the ones that we're submitting to this hearing today are those 10 needs from their list. So that is in your packet. Additionally, we had written testimony that came by email from 2 parties, and they're a little bit lengthy in their comments. So what I'd like to do is submit those written comments into the public record and summarize those for you, if that's all right. The first one was from Tabitha Scott, and her family lives in Hopland, and she has a minor who attends school in Cloverdale. So what this is about is mainly that there is a route that MTA serves, Route 65, that goes between the 2 counties of Mendocino and Sonoma County. And he's able to take that bus, but there's kind of a pricing issue where he's not able to take advantage of discounts that are offered by MTA, that he's too old for the youth discount. He's traveling on his own at age 14, but he's too young for the student discount, which is for college students. So the gist of this testimony is that there's kind of a gap there that they're falling into at that age level. So she says, I wanted to bring this to MTA awareness, as I'm sure others would also benefit from more accessibility to travel between the two counties, and also for young people to be able to take the bus. So that's the first one. And the second one comes from Jenny Murphy, who is the owner of Mendocino Chocolate Company. So this is a business owner. And she owns this business in several locations in Fort Bragg and the village of Mendocino. For the past several years has had 75 people come and go as employees of the business, and they average 16 employees at a time. So one recurring issue is transportation to and from their locations for employees who do not have transportation. In other words, they do not own a vehicle or do not have a driver's license. So she cites one employee in particular that would like to work in Mendocino. However, the hours of the existing public transit service does not match up well with the hours of operation of the business. So, for instance, the employees need to get there a little before the business opens and leave somewhat after the business closes. So the schedules aren't matching up very well. She has anecdotal evidence or data from employees and other merchants with similar challenges. They desire to use public transportation. However, that's where the difficulty lies, apparently. So she says she would love to present to new hires, as they often employ first-time young people entering the workforce, with a bus schedule and show them how to use it to work at their 3 locations. And she thinks it would be an incentive for people moving to the coast, that they know if they're trying to locate here, that there are employment opportunities and public transportation. So she'd like us to take this under consideration. So that is the second set of testimony that we received. And I think I've reported all of the testimony to date. And now, if there's anybody here today with testimony, we'd like to hear it now. Do we have anybody who is here for the public hearing? Okay, I guess not. Well, are there any questions for me about this process and what we're doing and how this works? Anything at all to discuss here?
Yeah, Director Hashak.
Yeah, so with the consultant work that's being done in Covelo, Hopland, Brook Trails, and Laytonville, how is that going, or will that be incorporated into this, the unmet needs?
Oh, yes,
If
that's a
something
good
comes out,
point.
yeah.
I think I know where you're going with that. You know, we have an ongoing planning project through MCOG's current year planning work program on, we're calling it Mobility Solutions. It's a feasibility study for some of our remote inland communities. You've been hearing about this over the past few months, and Loretta's going to talk about that in her reports a little more. But the point is that those 5 communities, Covelo, Laytonville, Brook Trails, Hopland, and Potter Valley, have been hard to serve, hard to reach areas for many years. They come up on this unmet transit needs list every year, year after year. We hear about it, but it's been kind of an intractable problem using traditional public transit. And so that's why we've got this Caltrans planning grant hire a consultant. We're holding workshops. There's another round of them coming up that Loretta will tell you about. So we're trying to solve these issues by more innovative methods. And so that's what's going on with those. So Cobolo is definitely being addressed by that. And I should say also that the next step in this process is today we just accept all the testimony. We'd like you to I have a recommendation in the packet for that motion, but after that they go on to our transit committee. Well, first it goes to MTA for analysis. They sort out this list and see kind of categorize things and see what meets the definition, what's feasible or not, etc. And then it goes to our transit committee, which is 2 MCOG board members, 2 MTA board members, and 1 representative of the senior centers that provide transportation. So there are 5 voting members on that. We staff that committee, and we'll bring a recommendation to the MCOG board in June on any of the needs that can be considered reasonable to meet with funding or other ways of meeting the needs. So that's kind of our process. Any more questions about that?
I'll add one thing.
Yeah.
So Supervisor has checked the solutions for those areas that was discussed at the Social Services Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. And it's listed as number 4 under the needs identified by SSTAC. Because the study is still in process, the exact solutions haven't been identified for each of those communities yet. So it's just sort of generally listed as mobility solutions / transit / microtransit for those communities. Because that would capture whatever's the ultimately recommended solution for each of those.
That's right. Thank you, Nafili, for mentioning that. So we do have it on the list for those 5 communities, so just to keep that coming forward.
Director Connie?
I'm curious, the 2 bits of email that we received today with the comments from the 2 folks, how will those be incorporated or addressed? Will those be part of the packet that's sent to MTA?
No, the ones on the transit center, did you say, and the admin building? No, and that's really for this board's advisement, and there's no formal action today, but I'm reporting that out to you. They're not what's considered an unmet transit needs by definition, and I probably should
Janet?
say what the definition is. It's brief, and it's right
Janet,
here in your packet. I'm sorry.
I was actually referring to the 2 emails that were received that you read in.
I'm sorry, I missed that. You know what? I have this headset is making some noises in my ear, so I missed that. So the question was about the written testimony that we received?
Yes, the person whose student isn't covered by the student discount and the person whose employees aren't able to match with the schedule for public transportation.
Right. Well, we'll add those to the list if this board so agrees with that, and that will go on through the committee process.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments from members of the public?
Let's see any additional no members of the public wishing to speak.
So then the process is to close the hearing.
Okay, we'll close the hearing at 1:59, and if someone would like to make a motion, they might include in the motion an attachment of the 2 comments that Director Connie referred to just a minute ago.
Yes, and you see my recommendation there in the packet. I have some language on that. We're recommending that a finding that the testimony heard includes unmet transit needs that appear to qualify under MCOG's adopted definitions, and those needs are directed to Mendocino Transit Authority for analysis and for further review and recommendations by the Transit Productivity Committee and Social Services Transportation Advisory Council.
So we would move that along with adding the communications we received.
Yeah, I guess we could have the motion say to include testimony heard today, the written testimony. Is that what you'd like?
Yeah, I'll move that.
All right.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, was that Director Connie?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing, if there are no comments on the motion, we'll have a roll call.
Director John Haschek,
Yes,
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josefina Duenas,
Yes. Yes.
Tasha Alstran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay. Moving on, we have appointments to the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council, if you're ready for that.
Go ahead.
All right. This is something that could have gone on the consent calendar. It often does. But I thought it'd be a good opportunity to call to your attention some vacancies that we have. Right now, you have my report in the packet and a list of the membership. We're asking for 3 members to be reappointed. And we're going to be down a member. So we'll have 5 out of 9 voting members on this council. And there are 2 seats that have been just kind of chronically difficult to fill or chronically vacant. And that's the potential transit user, at least 60 years of age, and the potential handicapped transit user. That's the language that's used in the legislation. So those are 2 people that we'd like to see on the committee. Doesn't mean they're using transit. Maybe somebody interested in transit, and maybe if some issues are solved, they might use transit. But we just haven't had any takers on that, and we'd love to fill up this committee. So just letting you know that that's going on, and if you know of anyone in your among your constituents that would like to serve, we'd love to talk to them and include them. And we don't turn anybody away from our meetings as well. So people are welcome to attend. It's only really twice a year that we need to meet. So it's not all that time consuming to serve. So what we have today are reappointments of Don White for Mendocino Transit Authority and Luis Martinez, the alternate for MTA, and also a reappointment of Christine Sukney with the Redwood Coast Regional Center. Are there any questions?
Would someone like to make a motion to reappoint those members?
I will move that we appoint those 3 members.
I'll second.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Not seeing any. Can we have a roll call?
Director John Haschek,
yes,
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josefina Duenas, Director Josefina Duenas. Yes. Okay. Tasha Alstran
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to appointments to our various standing committees. We have the executive committee, which is the chair and the vice chair, and then there's a 3rd board member that serves on the executive committee. It meets usually 2 or 3 times a year, usually revolving around the budget before it goes to the full board. We also have the transit productivity committee, And I want to mention, I this year was also appointed by the Board of Supervisors to the Mendocino Transit Authority. I don't know, look to input from MCOG staff, whether that leads them to want to be on the Transit Productivity or not want me on the Transit Productivity Committee, because I'm now on both boards again. And then there's also the Council, CalCog, which is the statewide association. So we have 2 board members, 1 voting, 1 alternate voting. Director Hashak continuing here. He's been, I think, both the voting and the alternate at different times. So just looking at that roster of committees, do we have any board members who are particularly interested in any of those committees?
I would like to be on the Transit Productivity Committee.
Okay.
Chair
Dr. Hashak.
Judy,
Go ahead.
I'd be happy to fill the position for vacated by Alvin Smith for either one of these.
Okay. Director Hashak?
Yeah, I would take the position as the vice chair on the executive committee, and also I would do the CalCog voting member, or
Okay, great.
if we want to do it that way.
Yeah. So how about, because you've been there for what, Director Hashak as the voting member, Director Norvell is the alternate on CalCog. And I believe this year they're now back to meeting in person, with at least with the annual conference. But there are other meetings that will probably be still by Zoom, but I'm not 100% sure, and that maybe Nafili could fill us in on that.
Sure. Yeah. So we did reach out for the last board meeting and ask that there be hybrid, because I know, and I'm sure we were not the only ones requesting that, but I know that Director Alvin Smith had that preference, but they are doing at least hybrid. Whether they go to fully in person or not is yet to be seen. But yes, the annual leadership forum is coming up next month. That will be the first in 3 years that they've done in person. Because that is coming right up. We do, whoever our delegates are, so if it's Director Haschek and Norvell, we'll be reaching out to you after this meeting within the next few days to see if that's something you're interested in. That is March 5th through the 7th in Riverside. And while I'm speaking, Director Judy, to answer your question about the Transit Productivity Committee, because we know there are board members that are on both MCOG and MTA, we just try to get some balance. So we don't want both of those representatives to be on both or also MTA board members. So if you were to be on that committee, we would just want the other representative to not be an MTA board member.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm perfectly happy to be on the, if no one else, Director Carter would like to be on the Productivity Committee, and I'd be happy to be the other board member on the Transit Productivity Committee if no one else is interested in being on it. Okay, so if that's looking like the volunteers and people available this year,
Could you summarize that?
Yeah, so
from the top.
exactly. So chair, vice chair on the executive committee, which is Directors Dirty and Hashak, and then also on the executive committee. I'm sorry, someone spoke up. I'm trying to remember now who spoke up for the executive committee.
Director Norvell.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
Director
idea is we need a city member.
Got
according
it.
to the
Yeah.
bylaws. Yeah.
So Director Norvell on the executive committee, and then on the Transit Productivity Committee, myself and Director Carter. And then at CalCog, it'd be Director Hashak as the delegate and alternate as Director Norvell.
Oh.
And one thing,
Perfect.
just a request for when we do schedule the executive committee, one thought I had that might be helpful, because we do have several new board members. maybe we could have just an agenda item at the executive committee to discuss the upcoming meetings for the year and looking for a meeting in the year that we could schedule some kind of good overview about funding that's coming into MCOG in the next year or two. We have the STIP cycles that come up, and then we could, have kind of a thoughtful presentation for the whole board, updating us who've been here before, but also the new board members about what to expect in the next 2 years in terms of transportation funding that will likely flow through MCOG for transportation, both planning and construction projects.
All right, duly noted. And the timing on that meeting is, it's got to be near the end of the month. We're just developing the budget, just starting to right now. And we'll need some time to get a packet out. And probably, notice that meeting and get it done by March 1st when we have a noticing requirement on the budget. So typically the last week of the month. So we'll get together with you to try and pin down a date there outside the meeting.
Okay, well then I think that takes us to
can we have excuse me, I would like to see just a vote to approve the slate. If we do that one, actually. Some of these are council appointments and some chair appointments, so it's kind of an easier
It
to
looks
do
like
if we
Mike
have
Carter has
yeah.
a question.
Go ahead, Director Carter.
Yes, I noticed there's a vacancy on the Covelo SR 162 corridor multipurpose ad hoc committee, and I would be more than willing to fill that vacancy.
Well, let's don't forget the ad hoc. So thanks for catching that. I think we're down a member on that one because it was Director Brown, who's retired now from the board, and the climate action, or I guess we're calling it the climate ad hoc, includes that renewable energy project. We had Director Alvin Smith, so we have 2 members. If you'd like 3, it can be good as backup to have a 3rd member.
Sure. Would someone be interested in being on the renewable energy climate ad hoc committee?
It's kind of on an as needed basis as things come up, right?
So
Neely, there's not a schedule right now for that.
Maybe I could just give a refresher on what that is. So in Humboldt County and in Sonoma, so on either side of us, there are grants that the Public Utilities Commission is giving to those counties to fund rebates for customers who buy more energy efficient appliances. So in some ways, we're already getting some access to those funds through Sonoma Clean Power. But Humboldt County has submitted a proposal to the Public Utilities Commission to disperse those funds directly through a number of rural counties like Mendocino County. When we learned, actually before we learned of that, we were interested in filling that gap because Sonoma Clean Power is providing those rebates, but not through that program, but they're just sort of doing it on their own. Anyway, so we identified the Mendocino Council of Governments because it represents all of the cities in the county, and the county, that it was probably the best entity in the county that already existed as a JPA to take that role, which is more education and linking people to those rebates. Again, what we expect is that Humboldt County's grant request is going to be funded over time. It'll likely fund 1 or 2 positions at MCOG, which will manage that rebate program in Mendocino County. And our intention is that rebate be available directly to consumers or businesses. In the past, the way the Public Utilities Commission made that grant program available, only businesses contractors could apply for the rebate. And what we found is that a number of contractors in Mendocino County and elsewhere were so busy, they didn't have the time to file the paperwork for the rebate. So the customers weren't getting the rebates, even though they were buying the products. So Sonoma Clean Power is starting to make those grant rebates available directly to consumer. But in the long run, we want to have this program more on the grounds in Mendocino County through MCOG. That's not the entirety of that grant program, but that's, in my mind, the core of it. So anyway, so we've created an ad hoc committee. doesn't need to meet on any kind of regular basis, but we do expect that grant will come in to MCOG sometime in the not too distant future through Humboldt. And so it does stand to reason we should keep that ad hoc going, I think. So
And
is it,
one of the good things about the ad hoc is that we only meet when there's really a need to meet. And so there are decisions to be made, and we've met like probably 3 or 4 times. Not a heavy lift.
Director Connie?
I would be interested, but I'm a little concerned about my availability as a retailer. It's not easy for me to get away quickly. So if the meetings aren't pre-scheduled, I just don't know if I would be able to zip down to Ukiah as you need.
Understood. I would guess, I'd be surprised if we met more than 3 times, and maybe more likely once or twice this year, when we finally hear if we receive the grant.
All right, well, if there's no one else who's interested, I'd be happy to throw my name in.
And as an ad hoc, we can always meet by Zoom too.
That's what I was just going to add. Yes.
Great.
Well, I would be interested possibly if dipping my toe in the water, so to speak, try to help out.
Okay. There's really no reason why we can't. Is there a reason why we can't have 4 board members on ad hoc, or is that not allowed?
It's a quorum. It's a
I think that would
quorum.
be a
You'd have
Okay.
to notice it in Brown Act, everything
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
So we are limited to
Yeah.
3, a maximum of 3.
And I could certainly step aside.
Well,
Okay.
Jeff, if you'd like to dip your toe in, I'll stand down.
Okay, all right.
Was this the climate committee? I'm sorry, I missed
Yes.
a portion of
Yes.
that. Okay, thanks. Okay, great.
Okay. So do we have full composition of all the ad hocs and the standing committees now?
Was there another member for the Colo Trail project? Did I hear?
Director Carter.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And I
Great.
think 2 members is probably all the that ad hoc probably needs.
Yeah, I mean, if there's somebody else that wants to, we can go up to 3 on that, but I think 2 is okay.
Well,
Okay.
I'll move approval of the slate.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Director Hashak.
I'll second.
Okay. Can we have a roll call?
Yes. Director John Haschek,
Yes.
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josefina Duenas,
Yes.
Tasha Alstrand,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I believe the next item on our agenda is the calendar for this year. Has everyone had a chance to look at the calendar? Does the calendar hopefully work out for everyone?
Well, it's actually kind of how we're going to conduct the meetings. This will be our last fully Zoom meeting today. So we've got a continued item from December to sort of solidify those procedures. Shall I go over that a little bit? All right, you've got my written staff report, and we've been looking into, the Brown Act changes. We know a lot more than we knew a couple of months ago, and many thanks to Loretta for doing some heavy research into this, the amendments to the Brown Act. You probably heard a lot about this in your other councils that you serve on. So, there was Assembly Bill 2449, which made some major changes, but there still are some portions of the Brown Act that we're calling the traditional Brown Act that remain in place. So there are going to be more rules to follow, basically. So we got direction last meeting in December from the board members on some preferences as how we'd like to meet, and it seemed that there was a desire to continue some of the remote locations, you know, to avoid having to drive so much. That seemed to be a common thing. It makes a lot of sense. So the upshot of that was the suggestion was to have the city halls, Point Arena, Fort Bragg, and Willits be open to have remote call-in from those locations so the public can come to those. And in Ukiah, we would meet at the Board of Supervisors chambers at the admin center there, county admin. And also, which I forgot to mention in my staff report, is we used to have a remote meeting from Eureka for our Caltrans representative. So Tasha, you would be able to zoom in from your location there. So all those locations would have to be posted on the agenda every time. So what we're suggesting is that every meeting we're going to need to have our staff check in and find out where you all intend to be for that meeting so we can do proper posting. And then also there's a couple rules around these the new rules for emergency or just cause findings to be made when somebody wants to attend a meeting without the public posting requirement. Maybe it's last minute or maybe it's at a private location. So we're suggesting having a standing agenda item at the beginning of the agenda. It's kind of like we do now with a resolution for AB 361 findings. We could have a standing agenda item at the beginning just to check in to see does anybody need to invoke one of these rules about where they're attending from. And then, but one thing I should mention, we're drilling down in the fine details here. The emergency reason for attending somewhere else would require action by the board, and the just cause finding is a little slightly different and does not require board action, but they both would require that we have 4 members in the same place. So in Ukiah, we'd have to have a quorum of 4 to approve those things. So you can always call in your alternate as well. So if you have an appointed alternate, you can consider having them attend in your place. So that's what the rules are coming down to. And so our recommendation is on the back of my staff report here to approve procedures to hold Brown Act compliant board meetings in the Board of Supervisors chambers starting in March 2023. That's next month, and we're on their calendar now. With additional properly noticed teleconference locations open to the public at Fort Bragg City Hall, Point Arena City Hall, and Willett City Hall, and to add a standing agenda item to allow for AB 2449 options. So Director Connie, I don't think you were with us at that meeting in December. We weren't sure if you desired to use Willits or would come to Ukiah or not, but it seemed it would be convenient for, you know, these things kind of open up to more participation. But if, you know, in these cases where we have the city halls open, if the member decides not to join from that location, we've already posted it in that case probably, and we have to let the public in. So you'd have to at least have staff there to open the doors and start the meeting on a computer and do all that once we posted it. So this is some of the considerations. Any more discussion, or is there any discussion on that?
I have a question for clarification, because we just discussed this at the Snow Clean Power meeting, but I don't, because so many of those people live very close to Santa Rosa, I don't remember the issue coming up about what happens if you don't have a majority of the board at the main location. but I guess it's my impression that it's not required under state law for a majority of the people to be present at the main location. Is that true?
We don't need a quorum there in Ukiah unless a member wants to take advantage of one of these conditions. Loretta, can you speak to that? I know you've been drilling into the details on this. There are two cases, emergency and just cause, and they're slightly different.
Yes, under the Traditional Brown Act, which is still in effect, the quorum must participate from locations within the jurisdiction, but you don't have to be at one location. But if we want to go under the new provisions of AB 2449, where members can request the just cause or the emergency, then that would require us to have a quorum in a single location.
Got it. So I think for the vast majority of us, it's probably going to be most simple and most straightforward if we don't invoke the emergency clause and we just schedule the meetings routinely at our city halls. Director Connie?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I was just going to suggest that maybe we all sort of pledge to not use those emergency opportunities and instead call in our alternates. And that's in fact what Nafili said earlier. So I think that would save us all a headache.
Mm-hmm.
Director Carter?
Yes, since I don't have a city hall as a public appointee, I will be attending in Ukiah.
Okay.
Yes, and staff would be present. I'll be present in Ukiah, and Jody and some of us, the rest of us, those who are needed at the meeting will be there in Ukiah at the Board of Supervisor chambers, and probably have other members of staff calling in.
Okay, well, it looks
Yeah.
like you're looking for a motion to approve procedures held under the Brown Act with these additional properly noticed teleconference locations at Fort Bragg, Point Arena, and Willett City Halls.
And Eureka.
And Eureka.
And Eureka, we meant to add that. Yes, thank you, Loretta.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Chair Jody, if I may,
Go ahead.
if we can reference Fort Bragg as town hall, not city hall, please.
Okay, but for clarification though, in the case of Willets and Point Arena, it would be their city hall?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Go ahead.
So would you actually want to use the town hall building or be at the city offices? Because it doesn't have to be the actual, public meeting location. It could be a conference room or something like that.
I would check with IT, but I think for now I would prefer town hall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll confirm that with you before our next meeting. When this comes into effect, we'll confirm that with you.
Thank you.
That's a good point. We didn't talk about that. So we just have to make sure we notice on the agenda the correct location.
Director Connie?
Yeah, I just had a quick clarifying question as well. So obviously, if I were going to stay in Willets, it would have to be noticed that we would be at Willets City Hall. But if I chose to drive to Ukiah, you will be checking before each meeting to make sure where members are going to be. Is that correct? Or do I need to sort of plan my year in advance?
We're suggesting that we do it each time, give you some flexibility there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yes, we'll confirm. So as long as we know before the agenda goes out, we just need to include that location on the agenda if it's going to be used.
Okay.
Right.
Director Alstrad?
I just was wondering if there is the capacity to do a hybrid meeting. Is the technology there that it's going to be effective?
So we haven't used it yet, but we have seen it in action. The Board of Supervisors, the County Board of Supervisors Chambers has gone through some improvements during the shutdown. So they have a hybrid meeting set up. So, the two supervisors might want to chime in, but I believe there's a display on the wall that shows the people that are participating remotely. And it's laid out better for a hybrid meeting.
Yes, we staff will be getting an orientation in there on site on the 14th.
Right.
So we'll know
Director,
a little bit more.
Director Hashak?
So what happens if Director Kane, for example, wants to go to Ukiah, but we have to have the city of Willits open during the meeting time in case someone drops by?
I think what Steph said is if so long as they know in advance that there won't be someone at the typical remote locations, then then for that agenda they won't list on the agenda that as a remote location. So
Okay,
there could be instances where no board member will be attending from Willits, in which case they would just not list Willits for that meeting on the agenda, or Fort Bragg, or or Point Arena possibly.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we had a motion. Did we have a motion?
Not yet. I don't think so.
I'll move to approve the procedures to hold Brown Act compliant meetings.
second,
Okay, and including Eureka.
Right.
Okay, Director John Hashak,
yes,
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josefina Duenas,
I said yes.
Tasha Ostran,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess that wrapped up our regular calendar. We're going to recess as the Policy Advisory Committee and reconvene as do we have a motion to ratify the actions of the Policy Advisory Committee?
So moved.
I will second.
Okay. Can we have a roll call?
Director John Hashak,
yes,
Director Mike Carter,
Yes.
Director Greta Connie,
Yes.
Director Jeff Hansen,
Yes.
Director Bernie Norvell,
Yes.
Director Josefina Duenas,
Yes.
and Chair Dan Jurdy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to reports. Do we have a report from Caltrans?
I don't have much today, but I did want to say that I'm hoping to have an updated milestone report before the next board meeting. So I know it's been a while, so hopefully next time.
Okay, thank you. MTA, Jacob.
Thank you. We've been working here at MTA with MCOG staff on the mobility solutions for rural Mendocino communities. We have a meeting tomorrow, which is it's kind of inspiring that we've been doing this, kind of opening it up and seeing hopefully some solutions to those communities. We've received proposals for the short range transit development plan for MTA. We'll be working with MCOG staff on the review and scoring in the coming days and weeks. One thing I'd like to say is that we are still restoring service that was affected by the pandemic. We still have and are experiencing a driver shortage. That being said, we have seen in the last couple of weeks a number of applicants or new applicants. So we're definitely optimistic at this point.
All right, well, thanks for the update. On to the Great Redwood Trail.
yeah, we haven't had a meeting since our last MCOG meeting, so we do have a meeting on February 16th. It's a Thursday, which is a new schedule for us because they are normally on Mondays. I think so. So we're looking at having Thursday meetings from now on.
Okay, and Director Hashak, can you just refresh our memory about the Great Redwood Trail? I think is your agency partnering with the California Coastal Conservancy for some of the trail implementation? Is that what's happening?
Well, Karen Kine, or Karen Gear, who's the executive director of the Coastal Conservancy, is also, or is the executive director of the Great Redwood Trail for the time being. So I
Okay,
think
so
interim position.
got it. So Karen's the link between the two.
Right.
All right. We have MCOG's summary of meetings. Is there anything you'd like to highlight in the meetings?
Nothing to highlight, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, not seeing any. On to administration.
Yes, so we do want to give a report on the Covelo State Route 162 multi-purpose trail project. So for our new board members, just a little background. MCOG is actually implementing this construction project. It is the first and most likely only construction project that we as a planning agency will implement, and it will construct approximately 2 miles of pedestrian path parallel to Highway 162 through the community of Covelo, with an additional approximately half-mile segment that runs perpendicular to that. This was awarded from a statewide competitive active transportation program grant due to the severe accident and fatality rate along that highway segment for pedestrians. So the project, we've been working towards project implementation towards construction for many years. It's been a long process getting through the environmental process and then right of way, but we got there. We advertised for construction contractor bids last fall in October, and then opened bids in November of 2022. Unfortunately, the bids did come in significantly higher than the engineer's estimate, and were in fact over when combined, that overage combined with our needs for construction engineering services, which will be provided through contract, though that took us to a funding shortfall of just over $2 million, unfortunately. So prior to the bid opening, we had been told by Caltrans District 1 that there was some complete streets funding, which comes out of the State Highway Operations and Protection Program. There would be some of that funding coming to District 1 that could go towards this project in the event that there was a funding gap after bids were open. I should add, District 1 is very supportive of this project, and so they were they continue to be supportive of the project. Unfortunately, really not because of anything specific to the project, but because it's inconsistent with how things are typically done. There has been some resistance from Caltrans headquarters to approve that additional funding. So at the let's see, at the December meeting, at a previous meeting, the MCOG board authorized award of the contracts once additional funding was approved by the state, but because that funding has not yet been approved by the state, we have not been able to award that contract yet. I do have a little bit of an update from the written staff report that was in the packet. We actually had a meeting on Thursday of last week with Caltrans District 1 headquarters and California Transportation Commission staff to discuss this project. We discussed a lot of options, including reducing the scope, which would obviously, it's not ideal because we want to deliver the full project to see those full safety benefits. It's also inconsistent with the guidelines of the active transportation program. So ultimately, after discussing a lot of options, Caltrans District 1 did agree to put forward a request for a future California Transportation Commission meeting to consider the additional complete streets funds as originally discussed or originally proposed. So Like I said, this does have the support of District 1, but it has to go through review at Caltrans headquarters before it makes it onto the California Transportation Commission meeting. So that review meeting at headquarters level, which we do not get to participate in, will actually happen this week. So we should know later this week whether that'll be moving forward to a CTC meeting. We are hoping it will make it onto the March CTC meeting, and then we would be able to execute a contract shortly after that. However, it's possible because of the lead time that Caltrans needs to process items for those meetings, it's possible that it may not be heard by the California Transportation Commission until their May meeting. But there is some hope still for that additional funding. So that is my update. This is not an action item, of course, just an opportunity to inform you and allow for any discussion. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just a question or comment. With a significant Native American population in Covelo and Round Valley, I'm just curious if there's any particular funds that Caltrans is aware of that might be targeted towards Native American communities. I know that the state's made a pretty big commitment to trying to reach out and get more involvement with and partnerships with the tribes. And I don't know if there's any funding that might possibly be available for community improvements that are affecting tribal members.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if I could speak to that today, but certainly something to look into. It's a good point.
I don't know, maybe that might cause it to rise a little bit higher in the priority list. I mean, they're probably looking at the cost and the population there, but I think there's a more complicated story there than just the population of Covelo and the safety hazards that they've been living with over there. Okay, it looks like no other comments or questions on that item.
No, I believe there was a member of the community here in the meeting, but it looks like maybe they've dropped off. So I will keep you posted at the next meeting. Hopefully I will have some good news to report.
Okay, thanks. Director Hashak?
Yeah, this was discussed at the Round Valley area MAC meeting last week, and certainly there were proposals or ideas about limiting the scope of the project and everything. And I've talked to Nafili about that. And I'm glad that it was considered, and I'll report that back to the MAC, because they're certainly trying to find a way to make it happen too. I appreciate this conversation.
Yes, we've kind of talked through all of the options, and we may still, if the Complete Streets funding is not supported or not approved, we may still have to look at a scope change, but it'll be tricky to come up with a scope change that reduces it fits the project within the available funding, but still meets the benefits provided through the original project, because that's a requirement of the active transportation program. So it's not ideal. It's not the approach we want to take, but we still think that, some project would be better than no project. So we'll go down, we'll keep exploring that if the additional funding isn't an option.
Okay, we also have listed, is there an update on the regional energy network?
Yes, so I just have a verbal update for you. So this is for the new members. Director Drudy gave a great summary of this already for me, so he saved a lot of my report. But this is the Rural Renewable Energy Network. Rural Regional Energy Network. Is the or REN, we call it the Rural REN, is something that we have proposed to join along with Humboldt County and several other rural counties around the state. The regional energy networks are something that were created by the California Public Utility Commission in 2012 as a way, kind of a partnership model to deliver energy efficiency and rebate programs to hard to reach customers. So there are several of these around the state. I believe this would be the 5th REN in California. We had originally thought that this was going to be considered by the California Public Utility Commission in October of 2022. However, they grouped it with some other items that they are considering, which put it on a delayed track. And we're now looking at October of this year for approval by the CPUC. So once that happens, we would be able to begin implementation in early 2024. So we're basically a year behind our original implementation schedule. The part of the process is that the proposal is available for public review and comment, or stakeholder review and comment. And so the only real comment that's been received so far, there are several programs that would be included in the services that are provided through the REN. One of them is the rebate program that Director Jurdy had mentioned. There are also programs regarding codes and standards, and workforce education and development is another one. So the only real comment that's come in so far was from an advocacy group that thought that the workforce and education program might be duplicating some of the programs that are already being provided in the state. The response and the people that are leading this effort, it is being the administrators of this entire REN are it's Redwood Coast Energy Authority out of Humboldt County. So they will be responding to that, or they have responded to that the current workforce and education programs that are available in the state really are not accessible to rural residents. So they really aren't. It's not duplicating those, because these would be services that would specifically be targeted toward rural residents and more accessible. So that's my update. We will be meeting with our CEA later, either later this month or in March, to discuss plans, additional details in our plans for implementation, but that's where we are at this time. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Not seeing any. Thank you for the update, Ophelia.
I've got one miscellaneous here. I made a correction to the board calendar. Thank you, Tasha, for catching a typo in there where I've corrected the August meeting date, and it is the second Monday. It's the one time of the year we kind of shift the week that it falls in. And I'm sorry, Director Jurdy, I think I kind of cut you off when we started talking about the calendar. So if there's anything else about the calendar, we have it posted on our website. It's first Mondays, not every month. It tends to be 9 or 10 months a year.
Got it. I just realized we actually adopted this calendar in December of last year.
Yeah, we did that, but that's before we had new members. So, it can be amended, if need be, but this sort of follows the pattern that we've had in the past. So just think about first Mondays most of the time. And that's all I have.
Okay. All right. Well, then that takes us to our planning staff.
Thank you. Yes, I have 3 brief reports. The first one is on the mobility solutions for rural communities of inland Mendocino County. And for our new members, this is a project that's been going on several months. It's grant funded by a Caltrans Transportation Planning Grant. And it's a consultant-led project to study the remote rural communities of Covelo, Laytonville, Brook Trails, Hopland, and Potter Valley, to look at potential mobility solutions and alternatives for these areas that are hard to reach by traditional transit services. We've previously reported on community workshops and stakeholder meetings that were held in the 5 communities last summer. And then after that, we had a successful survey, which received 339 responses. So the consultant team has now completed their analysis of the survey results, and they've developed a range of potential mobility solutions for each of the 5 areas. And those solutions have been reviewed by the project team, and they are now ready to be presented to the project technical advisory group, which will be meeting tomorrow via Zoom, followed by another round of community meetings that will be held this week in the 5 communities. So I've listed the locations of the 5 community meetings. We start with Brook Trails tomorrow at 5 o'clock, Covelo on Wednesday at 11 a.m., Potter Valley Thursday at 10 a.m., Laytonville Thursday at 1 p.m., and then in Hopland on Thursday at 5 p.m. So these are, everyone's welcome to these community meetings. We've advertised them, the consultants advertised them widely. We've put out a press release. It's on our website. If you have the Zoom information there in your report, if you don't want to type in that long string of numbers, it's linked on the MCOG website. On the home page, there's a project page that you can connect to those meetings. And we're just continuing to work with the consultant team in the communities to narrow down potential solutions. MTA is a partner on this project. So the timeline for the study runs through this summer with a presentation on the final recommendations anticipated for the August MCOG board meeting. And we will be coordinating with MTA to invite MTA board members to that presentation also. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and you're all welcome to attend any of these meetings if interested.
Thank you. Director Connie.
Thank you. Loretta, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate MCOG and MTA's efforts on this. Even though I'm on the Willett City Council, at the bookstore, I regularly hear from folks in Brook Trails and Laytonville and Covelo regarding the lack of public transportation for them. So this really does matter to people in the North County, and I just greatly appreciate the efforts of both agencies to address this longstanding issue.
Great, thank you. I will go ahead and add that, we're looking into funding options, and I have to say there's challenges. We are hopeful with the Clean Mobility Options Grant that might work out. I've attended several CMO meetings, as you've probably seen on the meetings calendar, asking questions, finding out details. And with the solutions that are proposed, and then I ask the questions of the CMO staff, we're not really getting answers that are very encouraging, but we're continuing to look for that. Okay, any other questions before I go on to the next report?
Not seeing any. Thanks.
Okay, the next report is on the feasibility study for the Mendocino Transit Authority's Ukiah Transit Center. This is a project to do a feasibility study and location analysis for MTA's new Ukiah Transit Center planning project that recently got underway. The purpose is to evaluate potential locations, including locations that have multimodal possibility for multimodal improvements for a new transit center somewhere in the greater Ukiah area. MCOG staff administered the competitive procurement process, and we ended up hiring a firm of LSC transportation consultants. And I believe I reported in December that project had just been executed, and we had a project kickoff meeting in early December. We had an initial stakeholder meeting and site visits to some potential locations. So where we are at the project right now, in February, the team is still working on analyzing information that they've been sent and data we've sent them. The next thing really on the timeline is in April, they will be coming back, having a planning charrette and stakeholder interviews and launching an online survey. And then this project goes through, looks like through the fall. We anticipate the final report in September. and excuse me, draft final in September and a final in November. So MTA plans to utilize the recommendations that come out of this study to then, pursue the next steps of looking for grants and acquiring property and just continue on down that path toward getting a transit center. It's funded in the current year's work program. It is not a grant project. And be happy to answer any questions on that. Okay, if not, I'll go on to the last report. This is MCOG's public outreach process with ChargePoint for rural electric vehicle charging, for their rural electric vehicle charging grant. As we reported in December, MCOG staff supported ChargePoint's application before the California Energy Commission last year by agreeing to help with their public outreach process to identify desired charging locations for these grants. So the grant was successful, and the project includes installation of 25 chargers dispersed at 5 separate sites throughout the greater Ukiah area. And ChargePoint has indicated to us that they want that greater Ukiah area to include from Redwood Valley down to Hopland. And we've planned the outreach workshop for Thursday, February 16th. We've advertised it widely. I've seen it on some social media sites. We've seen it in various media outlets. So hopefully with the words out on that, there is a link on the MCOG webpage with the Zoom meeting information for that workshop. And also we've scheduled a separate virtual stakeholder workshop for February 22nd to invite stakeholders such as county and cities and other stakeholders to have a separate meeting for that. Both workshops are by Zoom. They both have been advertised widely, and the call-in information or the Zoom information is on MCOG's website on the homepage. And be happy to answer any questions about that. We're doing this work. It's not grant-funded work. It's just MCOG planning staff work that we're doing out of our current work program, Work Element 4, which deals with sustainable transportation. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Loretta.
So, Chair Jury, before we go on, I would like to mention that former Director Tess Albin-Smith has joined us. And so if it's all right, we could go ahead. Welcome, Tess. We could go ahead and read the certificate that we went over earlier in the meeting.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, Tess, we wanted to recognize you and show our appreciation for your years of service with MCOG. And so we have this. This is a black and white version. The version that you get will look much nicer than this, but I'll go ahead and read it to you. So, on behalf of MCOG, we recognize and appreciate your dedicated service during your term of office on the Board of Directors as an elected representative of the City of Fort Bragg from January 2019 through December 2022. Special recognition is made of your service on the Executive Committee for 2 years, on the Renewable Energy Network and Climate Ad Hoc Committee for 1 year, and as the CalCog delegate for 4 years. We appreciate how you have supported public transit and mobility issues and been a champion of climate action, progressive transportation, and planning efforts for the Mendocino County region. Thank you. So, thank you. We really appreciate all that you have done for MCOG and with MCOG over the last few years. And thank you for joining today.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
We might have lost her here.
Well, hopefully she heard her certificate.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Nepelia. I think we'll now go to MCOG directors. Are there any MCOG director reports? first of the year. Okay. CalCog, as mentioned earlier, the annual conference is going to be March 6th through 8th. And if there is a board member that wanted to go to the conference who's not a voting member or alternate, that's also possible. We have money in the training fund. So just to make sure everybody understands that that's also a possibility. So it is a really good conference. It's been several years since I've attended, but the director of CalCog formerly worked with the League of Cities on transportation issues. Bill Higgins, he's very entertaining, very knowledgeable. He always brings in some interesting speakers. I think it's one of the better conferences out there, and so it's worth going to.
Yeah, I agree, and we can help with registration and travel arrangements for any director that's interested in going. And they do talk about issues, not just limited to transportation. So they'll talk about housing and climate change issues, all sorts of things that are of interest to regional governments. So please let us know if you would like to go, and we'll reach out as well.
Yeah, I've attended that one for years, and it's really one of my favorite conferences. There's always a takeaway from it, and something interesting, innovative, or enlightening somehow, and also just the networking on the side is really great. For getting to know your neighbors around the state and what they're doing, and a good way to make connections. I think it's really worthwhile. So they used to hold it in Monterey, which is a lot easier to get to, but certainly we can help make arrangements if any of you want to go. We have that travel budget. So.
All right, Tess, we see you're back on. Do you have audio now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I'm so sorry I didn't see the invite until just now. But the dates actually should go to 2023, not 2022, unless you wanted to say December, but not January. But other than that, I'm thrilled. Thank you for the acknowledgement, and I'm sorry I can't stay, but I know Bernie will do a great job.
Yes, thank you. So it is January of 2019 through December of 2022 is how it reads. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I may have said the wrong thing, so I apologize for that.
No problem. Hey, I'll stick around and watch your meeting, but of course I don't have a vote, so I'll just watch.
I think we're almost done. Tess, thank you so much. It's been really a pleasure to have you on the board with us. So
I'll miss you all.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, Director Hashak.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I've appreciated working with Tess on the subcommittees or the ad hoc groups, and she's got a lot of energy. So Tess, will miss you.
That Great Redwood Trail issue was one of the most interesting things that came up. And so I'm so glad we were able to purchase some of the property and do that too.
Well, and Tess will continue working together on the MTA board. Okay, all right. Well, then I believe that puts us at adjournment at 3:04. See everyone here next month.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
That's
Next
perfect. Have a
time
great day, guys.
We'll see you at the various locations.
Yes.
Be